Hello, Midnight Coders. Step into the igloo. Double time. Okay. Step into the igloo. Coffee's on. Pour yourself a cup. We are live. Have a seat. And in tonight's episode, I am joined by our guest, SentryMan. He is a developer who has many Java libraries to help other Java developers streamline their development tasks. He is one of the maintainers of Avaje. The GitHub and website are linked in the description. You can check those out. Before you go off exploring, let's hear a little bit about our guest tonight. Welcome to the chat, Sentryman. You tell us a little bit about yourself. What led you down the path of software?
Oh yeah. Great to be here, Mike. I was a wee lad, you could say. I was like what, 10 or like maybe 11, somewhere around that age. But what was I doing? I was sitting in my kitchen, right? And there was an iPad. And I was looking at the iPad, looking at shows to watch. And there was a show that was it was really popular at the time, right? And it was really strange that it was popular. Everyone was uh, liking it for the weirdest reasons. But I've watched the show and I thought it was great. It was called My Little Pony, and that one it was a pretty good show. I thought it, I thought it was pretty good. I don't know why people was like saying, "Oh man, you watched that? Ah, I can't believe you watched that. Ah, it's crazy. There's something wrong with you." I was like, "Dang, what are you talking about?" That's some good fights, funny friendship story. You
Oh my
know,
god.
but how this relates to software, it gets a little crazier, right? So I had a brother, and he loved the show so much that he wanted to write fan fiction for it, right? So he was doing that, and on the website where he was writing it, someone posted a comment, and the comment was basically they didn't understand what was happening in the story. Or, no, they're making a little funny joke, a little meme. They were saying like, "Oh, they posted a clip from a game saying, I have no idea." And I was like, "Dang, that seems like a pretty interesting clip. Where did it come from?" And it turns out this clip is from a game called Team Fortress 2. It was from the Meet the Medic trailer, right? And I was like, "Man, this game looks pretty fun. What other fun trailers do they have? They seem like they have a lot of fun characters. They had a lot of interesting, fun little characters." And one of the characters I gravitate towards, and you probably see it, it's my profile picture, the engineer from TF2. He had his whole spiel in his intro. He's like, "Hey, look, buddy, I'm an engineer. That means I solve problems. Not problems like what is beauty, because that would fall within the purview of your conundrums of philosophy. I solve practical problems." And it was so cool. I thought that guy was so cool. And I also wanted to solve practical problems because I was like, "Oh yeah, that guy sounds cool. I want to do that." So I wanted to become an engineer so I could just be able to say that line, be able to to say that line unironically, say, "Hey, I'm an engineer. I solve problems." And so I started messing around with the game console, messing with C and C++ because that's what the game was made out of. So that's essentially how I got into it, right? I kind of locked in. I was like, all right, I love messing with code. I think I'll get into the software. I'll go to college for that. So while everyone else was like wondering, man, what am I gonna do? Am I gonna be a doctor, a lawyer, and all this stuff? I was like, oh, I already know. I don't know what you guys, but I already know what I'm gonna do. So I just went to college and just locked in, and did that.
My Little Pony, the software engineer.
Yeah,
That's a
crazy where
road,
life takes you.
right? That's a road. So, what can you tell us about your suite of libraries? What exactly it is they're used for?
Well, I mind if I share my screen?
Yes, please. Tell us a little bit about. Let's see inside your head.
So I got this little it was the screen. Yeah, there you go. We got a little our little funny little website here, Avaje, right? If you put it backwards, it's funny. It's a little joke we're doing, right? eJava, Avaje, what I'm saying. But yeah, so the main gimmick about Avaje is that we do things at compile time. We use a technology in Java called annotation processing. So in this way, we kind of avoid having to do any reflection, class path scanning. We can do a lot of things at compile time. We can determine, oh, how many beans do you have? What goes where? That sort of thing, right? And in this way, we get to become exceptionally light. To show you what I mean by light, let me run actually a comparison against something called, Spring, right? So you all know the Spring framework. It's a classic. Everybody loves that guy. Let's take the basic Spring Boot startup web, right? Everyone uses that. It's the classic startup web. Let's get this guy. Let's get the Maven dependency, and I'll show you the size difference from what we got here. So let's take this guy, right? We got this guy. Let's go to a project here, right? I got the, what do you say? The Maven dependency plugin. What this will do is just copy all the dependencies into a folder so we can see how big it is. Let me just get rid of all the Avaje ones from this project, right? Try this guy. And then let us build this guy. And then we can see what it's got. Okay, so we copied all this stuff. It should be in the target folder. So let's see.
Now, can you, before we get too far in this, can you make
Let's go to target.
Are you able to make your screen just a little bit bigger for us, just so we can just use? No, you're not LJ. Yes, you are. Here now. Yes, you.
I am actually using Eclipse, so
Okay.
I'm not sure how that works.
Oh, there we go. That zoomed in.
That zoomed in, but you can't see the terminal. I don't know what's up with that. Well, I'll tell you what it says when we get to the thing. So it's modules.
Apologies for the people watching if you can't read the text. It is an Eclipse problem.
Yeah, whatever. Whatever. It might just be a Linux problem because I'm actually on Linux, so whatever. So, anyways, you see, just the basic Spring Boot starter web. This guy is just like basically 20 megabytes, 19 megabytes, 20 megabytes. The roundup, who cares? So if we take
for the record, you're being roasted in our YouTube chat by Prof for you using Eclipse in 2020. He said in 2025.
Oh, I love Eclipse.
But the man needs to realize that we're almost into the third month of 2026, and he needs to get his numbers
The year
right.
of our Lord 2026, bro. What are you talking about?
What's this 2025, anyways, Prof? Man, you're back in the 25. Past. So
this guy's living he's talking about me living in the past. This guy living in the past. What in the world? Anyways,
right?
If I take all these libraries combined, right, and put them inside this project, do the same thing, right? I have all the libraries we have, and oh wow, I accidentally just pasted it again. Whoops. Do this. Run the same command. Package it. You run dush, not even a megabyte. So you see, we get a lot of the same features for like a fraction of the size. So we have your dependency injection, your HTTP stuff, your web server, your JSON, all that stuff.
Now
that's basically the main conceit.
I'm a Spring Boot developer. I'm a Spring advocate, and I have to say, size isn't everything. It's sometimes about how you use it.
That's true, I suppose. But when it comes to size, when it comes to Spring, what it loves to do is that it adds the sheer size of the code. It means there's so much things. And there's actually a problem that actually drove me to find this kind of simpler solutions, right? Because at my company, we have some pretty advanced scanning, right? It's like, hey, is there a chance of there like being a CVE in your code and all that stuff, right? And what ends up happening is that Spring is so big, so huge, that so many edge cases, so many features we're not even using, we're getting flagged on. It blocks our pipeline. It's a mess, right? So we really have to go in and like do a whole bunch of exclusions. We have to write a report and say, hey, why are you flagging us? We're not actually vulnerable. For example, Snake YAML, right? Snake YAML gets a ton of vulnerabilities saying like, oh, if you use Snake YAML to parse YAML as like a data format, you could be like vulnerable. And we're like, bro, we don't even use it for like data. It's just configuration. Relax. So that's one of the problems you get into with these gigantic things, right? Because Spring Boot is a jack of all trades. It can do anything you want, right? But when you want just a basic application, it may just be a little overkill in some cases, especially for like serverless workloads. For example, Lambda, right? A lot of people say you can't use Java in Lambda, but the main thing is you can't really use Spring well in the Lambda, right? I've used stuff like this in the Lambdas before, and it starts off fast. I made one that started like in 50 milliseconds. It was like a whole API, a whole service, but like 50 milliseconds it started. It was perfect. But yeah, the main
Yeah,
benefits.
I've had some that boot
What's
up
up?
pretty quickly as well. I've had some that boot up in under 200 milliseconds.
Well, the thing is, you got to do a lot of stuff, a lot of massaging, a lot of things to make it work, And your application has to be like simple.
AOT kind of helps with that.
AOT, GraalVM, indeed. But the problem with GraalVM and Spring is that Spring was definitely not designed with GraalVM in mind, right?
Right.
Because as you know, right, Spring was built in a different era, right? It was built
Like
in an
me.
age where everyone was just. It was built in an age when everyone was just like putting everything on one server, bro. You had, the Tomcat, the wars and all that stuff, right? And at the time, reflection sounded like a great idea. Everyone was like, "Oh, use reflection, bro. Well, who cares, bro? Just throw it in there, right?" But then now we're in the age of serverless, the age of containers, right? Everybody wants things to start fast now, right? It's crazy.
Right.
So the very thing that gave them their strength, their versatility, their power, is now kind of turning against them a little bit. You see,
Kryptonite.
all the new frameworks they don't use reflection. Right? You got Micronaut, you got Quarkus, you got everybody's moving to compile time. Even Spring in the latest one, they're kind of moving some stuff to compile time.
Yes, but
They,
Spring
they but
7 is
they're still
making
intense.
some changes.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so we kind of went all in on that set of things. So this framework basically strives to reduce the complexity and size of your application, right? There's because they're so small, there's less code in which to find vulnerabilities, and all the times they just wrap JDK features, right? So like, for example, the dependency injection, it basically wraps the service loader, to be honest, and then makes the service loader work more like a proper dependency injection thing, right? I can go into it specifically if you want, but where are we at in that presentation? What do we want to do right now?
Oh, we're still just talking about your different dependencies and the different dependencies that you have before we jump into the meat and potatoes of what we got planned.
All right, I guess we go into a brief one about each one. We got dependency injection. This guy. Of course, dependency injection, you don't want to manually create all the objects. You want the framework to create the objects for you. We got something that does that for you, and we can do a lot of things. I actually got what do you say? Comparison for a bunch of the things. Like
Okay.
Spring, a lot of the essential DI features from Spring we have, but with the power of compile time frameworks like Dagger, because Dagger is the one a lot of people know as oh, you want to use compile time framework dependency injection, use Dagger, right? That one's pretty good. So, but Dagger does not have a lot of the nice stuff from Spring, right? The pre-destroy, the post constructs, the ability to dynamically wire things at runtime,
Which are
laziness, for example, right?
pretty useful. Those are
They're pretty
definitely
useful.
highly useful.
Yeah. And also, another thing Dagger lacks, well, is the ability to make, what do you say, autoconfig modules, right? Because that's another thing Avaje has. Despite being a compile time framework, it has the ability to create auto configuration, right? So you can create a jar that sets up stuff and input that into another project. Most compile time stuff has a little trouble with that. So the basics of how it works, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but the basics is you annotate a bean with the dependency injection annotations, right? The singleton, the standard annotations, singleton, and you get your dependency thing, right? And it will generate a class that will basically, okay, so the library, while your project is compiling, it will generate this whole class that keeps track of everything and how everything is wired. So if you were to debug this class, you could see exactly how your classes are being wired, exactly how the constructors are being called, right? And this way, you're able to easily debug wiring issues, right? Because a lot of things, that was another problems I had with Spring, right? And also, it happens somewhat with Micronaut, right? you have some problem with the wiring, and you're like, dang, Well, you try. You said you put a
Mm,
debugger. You put a breakpoint. You put a debugger. It's like, dang, bro, this is hard to understand. What is happening? What is going on? You only if you're really familiar with Spring do you understand. Okay, this is how it's kind of works. But even then, it's still a little not as straightforward to follow. But something like
mm,
this, you can easily understand. Oh, it's clear that I messed up because this one, for example, this guy is supposed to go before this guy. Like, why is it not? So you can understand what's happening.
mm. Okay. Yeah,
Oh,
I've
yeah.
actually been down that rabbit hole a few times with my early days in Spring. Was trying to figure out and debug what the hell went wrong when I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, and the fact that we're also in compile time, it gives us also another superpower. The ability to tell you before you run the code whether your code is incorrect. I mean, you have
Oh.
IntelliJ plugins that do the same thing with Spring, right? But with
Hmm.
this thing, just straight it in pure Java, right? When you just run it, even if you run on the terminal, it'll just say, "Hey, before you even it won't even let you compile. Hey, your thing is wrong. You forgot to. For example, if you delete this guy and if you don't have a bean, for example, if you delete this class will just fail to compile saying, hey, you don't have any class that provides the bean, right?
Hmm.
So you catch whole classes of errors before you even start the thing, which is really helpful.
Nice.
So
No,
that is the injection framework. Unless you have any questions about that, what are you saying?
no. I was just going to say, what do you got? What do you got next after the dependency injection? I guess that was next up.
JSON.
Yes. Now, how does this differ from something like, say, Jackson?
Well, Jackson uses reflection. Ours does not. Very cool. So while your code is compiling, we generate classes to extract the data from your POJOs without having to, yeah, use reflection to, scan the class and say, oh, okay, how do I steal these fields? How do I steal data from these fields, even though it's private, whatever, all that stuff, right? So what it does, I think I have the generated code around here somewhere, right? So say, if you have this class address,
Generated code right
it
there.
will generate this generated code exactly, right? And it
Okay.
will generate this adapter class that will tell you, okay, yeah, to JSON right here, it will say, okay, the first field is the thing. We actually do a bit of like what do you call pre-encoding, right? So
Hmm.
we already know the keys ahead of time, so we code that in things. So we don't have to do a bunch of calculations. It makes it basically run a whole lot faster, right? Basically, you can see exactly how your code is serialized, right? So okay, we get the thing, we send it to its own adapter, right? For the string adapters, we have some built-in adapters, for string, for integers, and all that stuff. So it goes.
So you
So
said this.
go
You
to
said this was a
JSON.
You said this was a generated class, right?
Yes, this class is generated.
Okay. So
We
is
have
it
some built-in
picking?
JSON adapters.
I was just curious where it's picking up the JSON properties from, like street, city, and suburb. Are those manually added to
It
the code, or is it
reads
reads it from the? Oh, from the Pojo. I missed that completely. Look at that. Okay.
exactly. Yeah. So we have
Okay.
JSON. It reads. It says, "Oh, we have a class annotated with JSON. What fields does it have, and can these be serialized?" So it gets this stuff and generates all this stuff. So, all right, we have a basic string, and it goes like cascade, like
Hmm.
almost like recursively, right? If you say, "Hey, you have a city," it'll also generate a city adapter if none does not already exist. But basically, you can go in
Hmm.
and easily debug your serialization logic. So if you have some serialization logic and it's not working,
Shit.
you can see, oh, is it getting the right value? What's the value actually being set? And we have this fun little, switch statement. I love switches. So like, when you
Hmm.
deserialize, you get the key. You can see exactly how your code is being deserialized. It lets you really take a peek behind the curtain to see how things are actually happening.
Now, when that reads the next field, is it always reading it to lowercase, or is there a chance that's an uppercase? Or I think I said it's matter.
It reads the
Well,
data as it's coming in, right? So if the
okay.
data is lowercase, it'll come in and do all that stuff. You can set it to be case sensitive or not. We have a bunch of different settings, but we try to
Okay.
emulate most of the features of Jackson, but just through code generation. So you see, we have ignore, right? What we do in the generate code is that we just
Okay, that was going to be my
don't
next
write it,
thing. Was what
or
about field?
we
What
just
about
say
fields?
skip.
Because I wrote a
Yeah,
one of my recent videos on YouTube was me doing a Spring into Java course where I'm doing a thing of libraries, pulling in a JSON from the library, but I'm only mapping certain things because I don't care about payload is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that,
Okay. So that's just
and you
those
can
same
also
similar
do
annotations of just like for me
yeah
it was
similar
JSON
annotation, right? If you
ignore.
yeah, you have aliases, you have the JSON creators. You can basically do a lot of the things you can do in Jackson. You could do in Python, but in our case, our thing is like a fraction of the size. I think Jackson is like 2 MB. This one is like 200 kilobytes. It's a whole thing.
Nice.
So
Very, very
JSON,
lightweight.
it's classic. Validator, right? So everybody has probably heard of the Hibernate validator. We basically
Yeah.
did the same thing, but without reflection. There you go. Yay, no reflection. So that you're probably noticing a theme here. You know what I'm saying?
I can tell.
So yeah. So uh, same sort of deal as the almost the same side of deal as the JSON library. I kind of reuse a lot of the same logic, right? Because you're basically doing the same thing. You see annotation annotated with valid. You read all the fields, but in our case, we do an extra thing. We read the annotations on it. Say, all right, there's some validations you want to put on it, and it'll generate a class that will help you do the validation. So you can actually debug and see how that validations work. If I have the generated code right here, I will be able to show it to you, but I clearly... Oh, wait, we have some generated code right here. Where is this? I saw it somewhere. Yeah. So if you have some sort of class, it will generate similar to the JSON one, right? It'll recursively call the different adapters if it's not like a base, like a string or something like that. And we put all the data of the constraints in we write it to the class, and so right, so we store it. So you can have all the error messages and all that stuff, and you basically can call validate, and it will validate the class for you. You don't really have to think about it. Another thing I forgot to mention is that you don't really have to worry about calling these generated classes. The library will do it for you, right? So in
You just
the
you
in
just
this
write the
case, right, you
interface
just
and
you just say validator instance validate, and this will go. Same thing for the JSON. Right? You say, okay, you want JSON, do to JSON, do from JSON, and then it'll just go.
nice.
So in this way, you don't really
User
have
friendly.
to mess with the generated code, right? A lot of other frameworks do that thing where you have to mess with the generated code. You need to bring it in, but we don't. We don't really have to deal with that. So, yeah. So most of the things you can do in Hibernate, you can do with this guy, this validation.
Okay.
But it is a whole lot smaller. So I think Hibernate, it's like also around 2 MB, something like that. But our thing is like 120. There you go. Very cool. Nice. But because these guys lack reflection, what makes them easy to use is they're easy to use in what do you call ahead of time compilation and GraalVM, because as you know, a lot of the problem with GraalVM is that there's no reflection support. So when you try to do reflection, you get a bunch of errors, and you have to write a whole configuration file saying, "Oh, you have to allow this reflection. You have to allow a reflection of this guy. You have this." With this guy, we completely avoid that because there's no reflection.
So now is your HTTP client just a wrapper over top of the JDK
The
above? Is that
JDK
what I
one,
see? Okay.
exactly. This one will be pretty easy to understand. The JDK comes built in with its own HTTP client, but yeah, I mean, it's a nice client, right? But we wanted to make it easy to use, and you make it work like sort of like Feign, right? So you see, like you make it define an interface, and we'll generate some code. Well, let's see. You define the interface, and then call our class here, and do create, and you create an instance of your interface, and it will generate a class at compile time that just calls the stuff for you, so you don't have to think about writing all the stuff, the serialization, all that stuff, because the built-in client is pretty bare bones. So if you want to do JSON serialization on it, it's just a bit of boilerplate. So we wanted to get rid of that boilerplate and just make it easy to work with, right? So we have
Nice.
that. We do stuff like retry. We can handle authorization. OAuth tokens and all that stuff. We had stuff like interceptors and retries.
Oh,
So
perfect.
it basically a wrapper to make the built-in one more like the ones you come to expect. So like Spring, think about Spring Web Client or like Apache Web Client, stuff like that, right?
Yes,
Just
I'm actually. I
give it a
actually
little
have.
more, a little more bite.
I've got the Spring REST client in my head as you're talking through this. Yeah, that's what I'm familiar with right now.
Exactly, yeah. So it's a similar thing, right? To give the built-in client a little more bite. But because it uses the built-in one, it's pretty small. So it's you don't have to bring in a whole thing. That's another thing I notice people do. A lot of people don't know how to make a just a basic HTTP call without bringing like thousands of megabytes of dependencies. It's kind of crazy. Like I was talking to a guy, said, "Hey, how would you make a basic API call?" He didn't even say URL. He would say, "Oh, I'd bring all the Spring Web client." I was like, "For a script?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah." I was like,
I'm not gonna
but
lie,
yeah.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that. I haven't used the actual raw HTTP client in probably close to a decade, so I'm kind of guilty with
Yeah,
that myself. So
yeah, but these are the sort of things you kind of think of when people keep pinging you as a hey yo you got a vulnerability. There's a edge case where if you deserialize XML or something, you get there's a problem. I said, bro, we don't deserialize XML. Like, what are you talking about? But yeah,
mm,
whatever. So, Jex, this one is also pretty simple. The JDK comes with its own built-in HTTP server. Everyone forgets this, but it does have one. The problem with the built-in HTTP server is that the API sucks. So we
I
made this guy
100% forget about that.
exactly, and everyone forgets it because it's the API. Let me tell you, the API sucks, bro. It's garbage. Well, I want to roast it too hard, but I mean, it's I mean, it's well, okay. You actually know it sucks, bro. Whatever.
Roast it.
But
It's okay. It's okay. We can roast it.
yeah, but anyways, so we basically created a nice little fluent interface, a little way to create a basic HTTP server in Java using the built-in one with this nice API, right? So you don't have to think about
Okay.
manually parsing the path params. You don't have to manually parse the query parameters from the URI. You don't have to manually implement all sorts of things, error handling, all that stuff. Because the basic
Okay.
HTTP server in Java is
That
really low level, right? So you have to implement basically everything.
that sort of reminds me a little bit of Javelin in a way, the way that the way that you have that structure there for creating a basic server.
Indeed. In fact, this was inspired by Javelin, but instead of wrapping Jetty, this of course wraps the built-in Java server. Well, actually,
Ah,
it actually used to be just the Jetty. I used to be a Javelin knockoff. It used to wrap Jetty, but then I saw, I was like, man, you know what? They already have Javelin. Why would they need this one? Let's do something different. So I wrapped the basic ACP server, right? And this one,
okay.
of course, we'll talk about Avaje HTTP in a second, but it has integration with that. But it essentially handles everything. The JSON, the serialization. You have all sorts of things. You do service and events. You do file uploads, static resources, all the things you would want in an HTTP server, right? Another
Hmm.
interesting thing is because the JDK server is actually a facade. You can actually plug in a bunch of different HTTP servers to back this library, right? So you can
Hmm.
actually use Jetty. You can actually use this other guy wrote one. It's actually pretty fast. It's actually pretty crazy. If you look at the tech empowered benchmarks, it's actually like it's pretty.
Roboho?
It's like up there, bro.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, I
Roboho.
don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest. But it's there. If you look at the benchmarks, and let's actually take a look at Java. It is like 12. Look at that. Pretty nice.
Oh
So you
wow.
get to yeah, yeah, yeah. So in our case, you get to use that one. So you get to use that guy. You can also use Grizzly. I just threw it in there because apparently, they. I thought this project was dead, to be honest. Right. The last time they had a release was like in
I was gonna say I haven't heard from this one in
2023.
yeah,
But
I haven't heard.
I literally saw yeah, yeah. I saw it on Reddit like the other day, like yeah, in January, right? And they were like, "Oh, we just released 5.0." I was like, "Dang, is he alive? You know what? Let me see. Does it work?" I put it in. It works. So I was like, "Okay, yeah, you can use Grizzly with this." And then you also have this guy. This guy is like interesting because this was the
I don't think I've heard
only
of this one.
pure Java HTTP implementation to exist, right? Everyone uses like Rust bindings or something like that. They use something else. They've written their things in Rust. This guy wrote his in Java. So if you want to use HTTP 3 in Java, this is like one of the few servers that just do that. So if you want to use ACB3, just chuck this in as a dependency, and it works. A lot of these things are like plug and play. So if you want to switch servers, just like add a dependency, and the built-in Java server will just pick it up and go. So you don't really think about it too hard. You also got
Nice.
WebSockets. It's pretty cool because you could actually send you could actually upgrade manually because the HTTP server is like that low level, right? So I made a whole thing. It was pretty nice.
Huh. What else
But that
you got
is
for us?
Jex.
What else you got for us?
I don't
Looks
want
like
to
you
go
got.
through every single one of
I
these
was gonna
because we'll
say
be
you
here
got. Looks like you
forever.
got a. It looks like you got a lot of them in there. So like, what are a couple more of your more used
I
ones?
think
Like
we'll just do
feature con-
configuration and the generator. So
Okay.
since we just talking about Jex, let's talk about the generator. Generator works like this, right? You add the dependency, you add the generator, and what this does is that it reads Spring-like annotations, right? So if you have a controller and the get and all that stuff, right? It'll generate a nice little class to call the underlying server for you, right? So in this case,
Okay.
we have Jex, right? So instead of having to write it out like this, you can write it out like this, right?
See, now that's a little more familiar to me with Spring than the
Exactly,
Javelin
right?
style. I like that. I like
And
that.
speaking of Javelin, I remember talking to a guy who's saying, I wish had Javelin had annotations. I was like, my man, I got you. Because this one doesn't just work on our library, it works on Javelin. So
Hmm.
if you want to have something like this, it will work for what do we got? We got Helidon,
Oh,
we got
geez, you got a few of
Javelin,
them. Mm-hmm.
we got our own. And we actually just added Vertex support. So if you want to use Vertex, like go crazy. Like we got a bunch of these. Also, we got one for
Wow.
Sigma for like a bunch of things. We put a generator for a lot of things. So if you have a server that you really like, I don't know, make it an issue. Like if I like it too, then I'll add support. But so in this way, if you really like switching servers for some reason, you could just have this one interface and just swap out the generators, and then it goes. So that's the main conceit of the generator, right? Yeah, you basically have all the same familiar annotations, and it'll do a bunch of things, do the mapping for you, and you don't have to worry about interacting with the raw framework as much. If you miss annotations, if your heart is really in that Spring world, you really love the annotations, this will do it for you. And the best part about it is that it doesn't use reflection. It's very cool. Yay! So it just generates those classes,
Nice.
and you can literally see how your thing is called. Because if you debug a Spring, it's a little even then it's a little thing. How's the stuff registered? How does the stuff work?
Hmm.
You could see this is how it's registered. This is how the your stuff is sent. How it gets the data and sends it. It's easy to follow, right? So that's the generator, right? And you
Talk about the
got configuration. This one's basic, right? What else really is there to say? You have configuration, like you have, say you have some file, right? Some configuration file. What
Yeah.
we
So
do is
for me
that
with for me with Spring, it would be application.properties.
ours is also application properties, right? Just you can do, yeah, application properties. Right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? Application properties, it's perfect. Or YAML,
Exactly.
or like TOML,
Exactly.
like yeah. So and you just it's like this. You say you have your key, right? You do config that get, you get the key. It works almost like system properties, but better
Okay.
because you can read from a file. So, and also you can also do things like have it update automatically, right? So you say, hey, you want if the file changes, you want the value to change. We have other things to do, like like reloading it based on certain conditions and stuff like that. Um, you can also define custom ways to load properties. All right, so like if you want to load from AWS, we made a plugin for that. So hey, we load from app config, we'll load from AWS, like get all that stuff, right? And we
Okay.
have of course, the same, like the $sign syntax, right? So if you have
Hmm.
properties in your properties, it'll resolve it. It says, all right,
Okay. And I
get
see you
the
have the default value as well too there.
exactly. We have default value as well. Uh,
Which I'm learning that
yeah,
not many people know about.
Yeah, it shocked me to know that people. I was like, damn, people don't know how this. Even in spring, right? People don't know how this stuff works. Let me tell
Yeah.
you, that's another thing. People have no idea what they're using, bro. They just deploy it, bro. It's crazy.
Right? We're in that generation now where everybody's just
Yeah,
shipping. They don't even care what they're shipping. They're just shipping it.
es- especially these days with the vibe cutting. But whatever.
Oh
That's
my
its own
god,
topic.
that's a whole other thing. We're not even going into that.
Yeah, but those are basically the essential.
So now,
Um, we could.
is
Oh wait,
there?
there's actually one more that we're working on, and I
Okay.
think you might like this one. We're working on one that handles WebView. So if desktop applications, right? A lot of people use
Yes.
stuff like Java effects or whatever other people use. I don't really use
Swing.
Java for like UI like that. So
Swing.
uh, we decided to make one that's lightweight. So yeah, we created this library, this wrapper over this WebView construct, right? So
This.
WebView is a C++ library that uses WebKit or like Windows like WebView, the APIs to render content using basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, like a browser would, if you will.
Mm, this is one of the ones I'm more excited about.
Yeah. So it basically works like this. You can, at the most basic form, you could just define HTML and say, all right, throw it in there, and it'll generate a little window and render the content. There's a lot of things you can do with this. You can actually, what do you say? So the properties of the window, you could say, all right, I want the window to be such this size. I want you to be able to see the developer tools, like see the network and the console logs and all that stuff. You can set the dark
Hmm.
mode. You can set the icon. You could do all sorts
Oh,
of things,
nice
right?
dark mode.
And
Oh,
but
right there, my favorite toggle, dark mode.
yeah, yeah. Let me tell you, that's a real one. You love dark mode. So another thing you can do is the two-way communication between Java and JavaScript. Because this was running as a native application, you can actually run and what do you say? Well, call JavaScript functions, right? So you have this eval method. You pass in some JavaScript, and it will execute it.
Oh,
And you also
nice.
have the reverse, right? So inside of your say you have a script in your JavaScript, and you have a
Yeah.
function. You can bind that function to Java, and make it do something, right? And return the result as a string, because JavaScript, strings and all that stuff. You can return the JSON object too, but JavaScript. Yeah.
Hmm.
So we have a little example here of some complex data exchange. All right, if you want to do stuff like this, you could send data back and
Hmm.
forth through the front end and the back end like natively. You don't have to use HTTP or anything. It just goes. But
Hmm.
yeah. So those are, what do you say, the essentials of Avaje at the moment.
So now, out of all the libraries in your suite, is there any that you're more proud of than the others?
So I will say that I have a pretty soft spot for Validator because this Avaje is not a solo project. I didn't actually make Avaje. I didn't. I actually
Hmm.
came in later, right? There's actually one guy. Yeah, there he is. This guy, the Rob Bygrave. He made the whole thing. He actually made eBeam too, which is crazy. He made his own ORM, but that's something else. So he made Avaje, and I liked it so much. I was like, dang, this is pretty good. I want to contribute to this. So I contributed so much to it and added so many features because I wanted to use it like I work for like an enterprise, right? So I wanted to make it
Hmm.
like enterprise level. Like I wanted to make it do all the stuff I'm used to doing in Spring, right? So a lot of the stuff in dependency injection I added because like okay, I wish I do this in Spring right now. I kind of need the same kind of function. Throw it in and then we put it in there, right? But through compile
Yeah.
time. But I'm pretty proud of Validator because this is the one that I mostly made by myself because
Nice.
we were just talking and we were like, okay. I was like, what else are you thinking about? He's like, oh, I wish we had a validation. I wish we had something like Hibernate, but without reflection. I was like, okay, bro, I got you. So we, yeah, I basically started this one, and then we just went crazy. So I'm
So
pretty proud of this one because it's the one I first made by myself.
it's pretty awesome, dude. Now, as somebody who maintains libraries for other developers, like what does your sort of day-to-day life look like?
Well, So mainly the thing is that I have my own job, so I don't really. Yeah, I have my own job, so I'm mainly working on that. So, but when it comes to maintaining these things, it's pretty basic, right? Because I have what do you say, a Discord server, right? So whenever something happens, well, let me just put it to the side. You see my Discord over here? I got a whole GitHub alerts thing, right? I have a whole webhook, right? So if something happens, if somebody raises an issue that hey, I got some problem, right? I will instantly get notified, and I was like, okay, and then I'll take a look and say, hey, let me go fix it. I'll take a look at the issue. There's no issue on this one, but whatever. Yeah, I'll take a look and try. Let me just look at one of the issues. I take a look and see how to fix it, right? So if we have, what's the latest one? Well, somebody said, okay, we have some. He wanted pre-destroy to work a certain way. Then we talk about it. Normally, I'll just go fix it. If it's like more complicated, I like talk it out. I was like, okay, what exactly do you want? This one actually went a long time. What in the world? But yeah, so like we're going back and forth. We were going back and forth. All right, how exactly is this? Do you want the feature to look? What exactly do you envision? And then once that's done, then I was like, all right, just go implement it and just put it through all of our checks and then go.
Now,
Most of the time, these libraries are pretty stable. What's up?
do you get spam with the rise of AI? Do you get like any sort of AI agents trying to like make pull requests for you, or is that not a thing with you
I've
guys?
heard about that happening,
I've
but I
heard
have
about it
not seen it
happening
myself.
lately too, and I've heard that open source libraries are getting hammered with AI agent making essentially bullshit
Yeah.
pull requests.
Yeah, indeed. It's a real problem. I was watching this one that and then people were like roasting the AI, and the AI actually wrote a whole hit piece about why his PR got rejected. I was like, dang,
I
what in the
saw
world? Is
that
this guy
same
actually a real
thing.
developer?
I saw that same thing, and I died a little bit while I was reading it.
I was thinking, it's like, dang, this guy really is a real developer. Look at it. Writing the whole hit piece that his thing was rejected, a whole blog post. I was like, man, they grew up so fast.
All
But
right,
yeah,
now
so
let's
that's mainly how it goes. I'm more like reactive, right? When a problem happens,
yes.
I go and fix it. Actually, a lot of times also like I get some just requests in like the Discord. Like someone says, "Oh, I got what do you say?" Someone says, "Hey, I got something." They don't raise a formal issue. They say, "Hey, they ask a question." And I was like, "Oh, you know, oh, you're right. That is an issue. I'll fix it." Something like that.
Hmm.
Most recent one was like stuff on WebView because that's like the newest one.
Yeah, that's
Someone also
speak
raised something about Jetty, but yeah.
speaking of WebView, let's dive into our little presentation we got going that you've got cooked up for us. 'Cause I'm super excited to see what WebView has to do under the hood.
Yeah, so unlike the other ones, the WebView is mainly a visual kind of a project, right? So it's hard to describe how it works. So
Well, I mean, I'm just
I
curious.
had an example here.
Can I pass things in like I would to a browser? Can I create an HTML file that links with a CSS file? Can I
Indeed,
like throw that into a thing and like
I
can I make
have.
can I make GET requests to an external API that I might write and pull things in? Like it's like I'm not gonna
Oh,
lie,
100%,
I got a
100%.
lot of exciting ideas going through my mind. I'm kind of childish right now and kind of a little excited, like bouncing in my seat, thinking
So
I want to build this cool little video game based on this little browser app and just make it into this restful RPG.
yes, sir, yes, sir. So I got this basic. Well, it's not really basic because I'm going to show you how this guy works, right? So we have our basic Jex server, the HB server I was telling you before. I'm using static content. I'm trying to get this AC index.html, which contains some HTML and CSS as well. I just put it all in one thing, right? And what this does, it may be hard to see based on this, but what this basically is supposed to do is create a whole timer application, something to keep track of your tasks and be able to create like a focus time. So all right, time for me to lock in. I'm going to set a timer, and I'm going to lock in for that amount of time, right?
Oh
And
yeah.
we got our HTTP endpoint. Like you were talking about HTTP, we have an HTTP endpoint, right? And
Alright.
just basically counts the status, right? And post, we want to add some we want to add some tasks and stuff like that. And in this example, we're actually using the HTMX front end framework. So in the HTMX lets you return HTML and replace object on the DOM with whatever the server returns. It's like server side rendering. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So in this case, we're gonna server side render the task, HTML, and send that back, and we have it's supposed to completing task, right? So here we have our web view. We set the builder, we set the title, and we set navigate. Now this says that we're not trying to just pass in raw HTML. We're gonna pass you the address of a server that has the HTML, right? So almost like a browser, right? So okay, where are you gonna get this stuff, right? Stuff like that, right? So navigate to this page from the internet, right? Or from localhost, you know what I'm saying? And once we have this, we will actually bind this timer start function to this, to start the timer active inside of the Java application, right? So we have a bunch of variables in here where it contains the state of the application, and we use these different bind methods to change the state of the backend, right? So when you see inside the index HTML, that we actually call these, right? So we can call the Java backend from the JavaScript, right? So now we have this. We bind all our functions. I just was dismissing whatever. Right. So then we run the thing, and then it goes, right? So let us actually run this application. Hopefully, it'll work first try. Let us see. Well, whoopsie. Run this. Post focus is ready. There you go.
Okay,
we have
look at this.
Our little thing right here. We start the session. You see, it's called calling this call. It started the
timer.
It ran this print statement.
Nice.
And it does all this stuff. We can say, okay, we want to we have our stand up. So I did that, not that right here. Let's say something else. And we just add it in there.
Today's goals: subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, you have to subscribe. You gotta subscribe. You gotta hit the smash that like button. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Can't even type my name. There we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Boom.
But yeah, so as you can see, we have a web view here, right? And we can modify it. We can do all sorts of things to this. Let's the icon thing doesn't work on Linux. I'm on Linux right now, so the icon, that's something we're still trying to figure out. But you can do all sorts of things. Let's say you wanted to set it to full screen, right? You run this guy. Let's run this again. Now it's a full screen application. Look at that.
Damn.
Even though it takes all stuff.
I was gonna say, now is there a way to exit the full screen, like the escape button, or?
Yeah, that's like full screen. If you want something to just like maximize it when it starts, you just use maximize, right? And this way is you still have the same buttons.
Okay.
And then you get the other thing. You can manually set the size.
Now, you mentioned before there was a developer's console. What does that look like? That's sort of like a browser's developer console, or like what is that?
Exactly. That is exactly what it is. So we have. You can enable it or disable it. If you don't want people to poke around and see all that stuff, then you can turn that off. But when it is on, you can do like more debug what's happening, right? So we have this guy. Inspect the element. You see, it's like the console debug, right? You can see all the stuff, the console sources. You can even debug the sources, all stuff like a browser. You know what I'm saying?
I like that. That is nice. That's really nice.
Yeah.
I like that web view. If you guys like that, hit that thumbs up button. That was pretty slick. Just had to slip that in.
Yeah. You gotta slip it in. Only 10% of people watch my videos are subscribed. You try. You want to build those numbers up?
Trying to build my numbers up, people. Hit that sub button. Hit that like button.
Yeah. So that's the basic example I want to show off. I didn't show off all the libraries in this project, but I got Jackson there. It seems we were talking before the show. You really wanted to see WebView, so I made this.
Yeah, I was super excited to see this, and I got so many ideas. This kind of just has me running some things that I want to
So,
do, and I might wind up piecing something together, and we'll do a follow-up video, and you can take a look at my use of your API or use of your library. Kind of roast me on how a Spring
are you
dev
doing it
uses
wrong?
this. Exactly,
Yeah,
roast me on what I'm doing wrong. I'm sure people would love to see that too.
exactly.
Everybody likes to see somebody get roasted.
Yeah. So, what now? Do you want me to do something else? What do we got?
Well, is there what are some trade-offs that people may ignore when choosing, say, one framework or another, or like your framework over another? Like, what are some trade-offs that I as a Spring developer might give up if I was to jump ship and start using Avaje tomorrow?
So, the trade-offs is that you'd have to be, at the very least, a little more involved with what you put inside your application, right? Because Spring, what it loves to do for its own benefits, and that is the trade-off, right? Spring loves to bring a lot of automatic stuff for you, bringing a lot of stuff that may be useful, a lot of stuff that may be junk for your specific use case. In Avaji's use cases,
This
normally the time you have to
the
what do we say,
famous
mix and match.
Spring
Because for example,
the famous Spring
exactly, yeah,
magic.
the famous Spring magic, right? You don't know what your code is doing, right? What in Avaji you have to take a more uh you get
Hands-on.
it's not like it's a little more hands-on. It's not as hands-on as something like Dagger or like we have to like do a whole lot of boilerplate, but you have to at least pick a library to use, right? There's no like Spring data, right? You say, all right, if I want to use a database library, I have to use something like JDBI or something like that, or like ebean or something like that. All right, if I want to do uh, something else, so if I want to use templating, right? I want to bring in a library like just JStashio or something like that, right?
Hmm.
You have to be a little more choosy with your libraries, right? That never really bothered me because I always try to keep my things light to, as I said, avoid all the stuff I don't need. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Right? I want to keep these compact, especially when I'm deploying stuff to stuff like serverless. I mentioned before Lambda, right? You want to keep the
So
sizes
now,
down. You want
so aside from like your base doing compile time versus reflection, what's something else that your framework does better than, say, Spring Frame?
but size reflection. We're a whole lot faster. That's for sure.
I think
Well,
that falls under the
at the very
reflection side of
least,
things.
yeah. Well, I guess technically, right? But let me just turn the thing, right?
Well, look at that.
You throw our thing.
You're
We're like,
number
we're
number
we're, uh, we're on
17.
the list. You know what I'm saying? We're
You're on
pretty
there
good. We're
twice.
Spring.
You're on there
Spring is
twice.
like,
You're on there
yeah,
twice.
we're all there multiple times.
You're on there
Spring is like
17.
what, 33 times? Like, yikes! Yeah, get it right. It's not
Yeah,
even top 20.
you're ranked on 17. You're ranked at 20. You're in the top 20 twice.
Exactly.
Or is that
But
three
yeah,
times?
I guess that's one thing. Speed. Though I guess in this case it's technically not us, but like the built-in HTTP server. But
Hmm.
you're basically same thing. We're using our library for it, so you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're using your framework.
Exactly. Yeah. So, other than size, other than hmm, what is this? Other than size, other than this guy. Well, I guess you have well, that's super easy to learn and understand to debug because
Hmm.
you're a little more closer to the code, right? You can see all the generated code, just for example, right? You have all this generated
Hmm.
code. You're able to you're able to debug issues a lot easier because you're able to see, all right, something's not working. Let me just run a breakpoint and just debug into it and see what's happening, right? With Spring, it's a lot harder to do that because, well, I guess it does relate to reflection in some way because all the reflection makes it hard to debug. So when it comes to debugging, our thing has got you covered.
Well, now, does any of our viewers who are watching? I see we have a couple of viewers here watching. If anybody happens to have any questions for SentryMan or for his framework, feel free to throw them in the questions or in the live chat, and we'll get to those in just a moment. Now, is there anything that you can think like this might be a little bit off topic of just Avaje, but is there anything that you can think of that like Java developers tend to overcomplicate too early on, or they're first trying to get into a project that maybe Avaje can sort of alleviate?
There's a concept called I've sort of mentioned it a bunch, but in a roundabout way. But there's a concept called Yagni, where you ain't gonna need it. People put in, and I actually learned this from working with some Golang developers, right? And they were like, "Dang, bro, you really use Spring? That's crazy. We don't need any of that stuff, so we don't do it." So I was really inspired by that. I love the mindset. I don't really like Go that much, but the
Hmm.
mindset really stuck with me. I was like, okay, clearly that's a good mindset to have, right? Like, know what your code is doing. Know your code, because
Hmm.
people putting this stuff, they don't know what it does. They don't know how it works. When it breaks, they don't know how to fix it. You don't know what your code is doing, right?
Exactly.
So
That's like that typical
just
meme.
not even
It's
about
broken. It's broken. What's wrong? It works. What's wrong?
exactly. It's not a thing about just Avaje or Spring. It happens all over the place in Java, right? People
Hmm.
use stuff they don't know why they use it. They say, "Hey, why do you use Spring? Because it's what everyone else uses." They
True.
haven't really thought
True.
about it.
This is very true. This is very true.
But they forget even Spring used to start. What do you say? There used to be something before Spring. It was Jakarta. Was not Jakarta. The Java EE, right?
Hmm.
That was supplanted by Spring because Spring just had just had trade offs. People thought about it. It was like, dang, you know what? I don't really like how Java EE does things. Let's use Spring. But yeah, for these and Avaje puts you a little closer to the code, so like it really gets you to that closer mindset of like knowing what your code is doing.
Actually, funny enough, Prof just said in the chat that he bets that 99% of Java developers don't even understand what the JVM is actually doing to run their program, which is really
Exactly,
funny
bro.
because him and I were actually in a chat yesterday where we were talking a little bit about the different stuff that goes on inside of the JVM and the JIT and like how it just continuously makes changes. Kind of
Legit and all this
crazy.
stuff, the speculation. It's a magnificent piece of software.
Oh, it really is. It
It's
really,
actually
really is.
crazy how great it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Well, if any of our audience happen to have any other questions, feel free to throw it in the chat here. And while we wait on a couple of answer questions. Do you happen to have, or does the Avaji team happen to have any plans for this framework going forward, other than just kind of following suit with the issues and bug reports?
Well, not well. It really comes as it is a little more reactive, right? Well, it's based on something that we actually run into, right? So if I run into a business problem, then I was like, dang, you know what? I wish I had something in Avashi to do this. Then I just add it, right?
Hmm.
If someone raises an issue and says, "Oh, I wish we could do something," then I'll probably think about it, right? But when it comes to plans, currently, other than the web view, I think we're pretty much we're just vibing, right? We like if it works, it works. You know what I'm saying? We
Hmm.
added a whole lot of features. If a bug comes up, there's a chance that we may like change it up and rewrite some things, right? While you do see we have these major releases, what we'd like to do is have not fully semver. We just have okay, we broke it and we didn't break it, sort of thing, right? And
Hmm.
all the times, even when we break it, we do try to do it in such a way that you won't notice it, right? For example, when we have, and for
Hmm.
example, in 11 to 12, we broke something, right? And the thing we broke is that, okay, we actually removed some deprecated methods, right? But even in 11,
Okay.
we had those deprecated methods for like a while, right? And then when 12 came out, it was like, all right, we still have backwards compatibility with it, But then
Hmm.
after this one, then that's it. And even in this case, right, because most of the code is compile time, right, you don't really notice it, right? So if you were on 11.6 and you just moved to 12, you wouldn't notice that it was a break and change, right? It would just
Okay.
it's just still work, right?
But the moment you
Oh,
go to the
yeah.
next version, you're gonna notice it.
Go on the next, but
Mhm.
even on this one, even if you did, you wouldn't notice. The only reason you would notice this is that, well, if you had some sort of library that was like super like dependent on it, and then then you might notice this. But generally, even in some cases, we have some stuff that only would change on some very specific edge cases, and we just had to break it. So well, we technically broke it. So like we bumped the number.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Well, looks like we're not getting any additional questions, and it seems like
I
my
guess I'm
coffee
too
has.
clear. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly, exactly. And it looks like my coffee has run out, so I would like to thank you very much, SentryMan, for taking your time and joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure having you on. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule. And if you guys enjoyed this podcast, make sure to hit that like button and let us know that we're doing a good job. And make sure that you smash that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you don't miss another Dev Cafe. As always, keep your curiosity open, your skills sharp, and that coffee cup full.